Fantasy basketball season just around the corner. Time to start thinking about those drafts, getting your rankings together. Today, we're going to give you our favorite sleepers for the 2025-2026 season. I'm Nick Whalen. He's Alex Barutha. Alex, let's get right to it. Give me one of your top sleepers for the year ahead.
Yeah, this is the guy who's going the earliest in drafts of anyone on my list, and it's Brandon Miller, who missed the vast majority of last season, played about 20 games before suffering a wrist injury. But before that happened, he was essentially playing at an all-star level. He was a top 45 ranked player in 8 category leagues, someone who was taking 9, 10 threes a game, essentially, and someone who, it's easy to forget because people forget about the Charlotte Hornets. They're always losing. Miller missed a bunch of time, but he was a highly rated prospect, number 2 overall pick a few years ago. And this is someone who should be on an all-star trajectory, and nothing has really taken him off that path besides getting hurt last year.
I like it. I'm going to go a little bit deeper for my first name, Alex. We're going to Santi Aldama, one of our favorite guys. If you listen to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball podcast, finished as a top 120 player a year ago, going closer now to pick 130, 140 overall. And I get it. He's not a projected starter, certainly not a sexy name. But you look at the games last season where Aldama played at least 25 minutes, gave you 15 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, about a steal per game, almost 2.5 threes per game. Had some big performances mixed in there. Memphis, to me, just doesn't have reliable front court depth. Even if you assume that Zach Edey and Jaren Jackson Jr., who, of course, had foot surgery in July, even if you assume those guys stay healthy, I mean, it's G.G. Jackson, it's Brandon Clark, who has an injury history of his own. I think Edey ends up missing time. He's always in foul trouble, even when he's out there. Jaren Jackson, of course, has a concerning health track record. So I know on the surface, you look at Aldama and say, all right, maybe he's like the 7th, 8th man for Memphis. I think there's a lot of nights where he's going to be handling a heavier workload. So he's somebody I'm comfortable taking closer to pick 100. Tell me about the next guy on your list, Ausar Thompson.
Yeah, Thompson, I think, is going to be rising up ADP very soon. On a lot of sites, he's around pick 100. I've been in some mock drafts where he's gone in the 60s or the 70s when people want to be aggressive. And I get why. Because, most of, at the early portion of last season, he didn't play at all. He was recovering from the blood clot issue, and then he got ramped up. But towards the end of the year, he was playing 26, 27, 28 minutes a game, doing sort of a light version of what his brother Ahmed does. And I think this year, the question, and why I think he does have upside, is if Ausar plays, let's say, 30 minutes a game flat consistently, he is someone who just through his versatile offensive game, through the steals and blocks combination, which are ridiculous, could easily rank top 60.
I'm going to go to Kristaps Porzingis for my next guy, Alex. Going around pick 80 in terms of the average ADP, which you can find over at RotoWire.com. You will see him go later on some host sites. Now, on a per-game basis, Kristaps Porzingis has not finished lower than 48th overall in Roto League since his rookie year. And even his rookie year, he was somewhere inside the top 60. Obviously, he got injuries, the mysterious illness from last season. That is a lingering concern. But I'm willing to buy low on Kristaps Porzingis. I really like this Hawks team. I like what they did this offseason. I think they're counting on Kristaps Porzingis to play a key role in that front court. And even in a down year for him last year, where he was in and out of the lineup, his role was changing, Celtics had so many options, still gave you 19.5 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.5 blocks, high volume threes for a big man. I'm curious to see if that volume carries over now that he's away from the Celtics, but he's somebody I'm willing to take a stab on, understanding that if things break right, you could end up, returning 3-4 rounds worth of value based on where he's going right now. Before we get to your next guy, Alex, just a reminder, use that code YouTube15, YOUTUBE15. Put that in at RotoWire.com. You get 15% off everything we offer over at RotoWire. Again, that code YouTube15. All right, who's next up for you?
Alex Sarr of the Washington Wizards. Yeah, Alex Sarr. He, obviously, let's just say he did not have a great field goal percentage season last year. Was one of the worst true shooting percentages in the entire NBA. Willing to admit that. But I do think some of that was just this. The Wizards team was a mess. He was their top pick. They gave him the ball sometimes at the end of the shot clock, and they said, just make something happen. And I think that's going to happen a lot less this year with CJ McCollum there and Chris Middleton there, who I think will actually help Sarr get easier looks and just overall development from Sarr on the offensive end. I think it won't take a big boost in field goal percentage for him to rank much higher. And not only that, but he is already a great shot blocker. per 36. He's over 2 blocks a game. I think that could increase as well. So we're looking at someone who has plenty of offensive upside and has already established himself as a good defensive center.
One big man that I'm interested in this year, Alex, Donovan Clingan for the Trailblazers. Going around pick 110 right now in average ADP. I know he's going quite a bit higher in a lot of best ball formats. Pretty easily a top 100 player for me. I expect him to take over as the full-time starting center. DeAndre Ayton, obviously out of the picture. He's now with the Lakers. If you take the 37 starts that we saw from Donovan Clingan last season, average 8 points, 10 rebounds, over 2 blocks per game, played only 24 minutes per game in those starts. Now, you do worry about foul trouble, but I think that's something that will get sorted out. I think we see that workload rise closer to the high 20s this year. He was second in the NBA in blocks per 100 possessions, behind only Victor Wembanyama last season. So I like some of the advanced stats for Donovan Clingan. I think if you start to prorate that out, you factor in some development, he's somebody that I think we're going to look back on and say, man, he probably shouldn't have been going at like pick 120 in a lot of these drafts. Who's left on your list? Who do you want to go to next?
Payton Pritchard. This Celtics team, I think, is going to be interesting all season. It seems like they are trying to deal Anthony Simons and cannot find a suitor. And I think that's going to be a bit annoying for fantasy, whether you draft Simons or try to draft somebody else like Derek White, Jaylen Brown, etc. But Pritchard is a guy I sort of have the most confidence in between the three that I just mentioned, who will play down the stretch if the team is not that good. And I think Pritchard, we saw, is able to take on a high usage as he did last season, won 6th man of the year. And I don't think his poor defense is going to be as much of a concern this year. So I think they're going to throw him out there and let him do his thing.
Is he even that bad of a defender? He at least gets after it, right? I mean, at least from an effort perspective, it's there. I'll give you two guys here, Alex, because they both fit a common theme, which is that they no longer play for the Utah Jazz. And that is maybe the number one thing that you want in fantasy basketball. Collin Sexton, now with the Charlotte Hornets. Again, kind of crazy that we're talking about, like, oh, he's with the Hornets now. Thank goodness. This is a good thing. But that's how bad it's been for the Utah Jazz, specifically in fantasy. I kind of like what the Hornets have going this year for the first time in a long time. I mean, the center position is still somewhat of a disaster, but I kind of like the rest of the roster. You know, when everyone's healthy, I think we see Sexton come off the bench, but I don't trust LaMelo Ball to stay healthy. I know you like Brandon Miller. He's already had his injury issues. We'll see if he stays healthy. Either way, he's functioning as a sixth man to me at worst for the Hornets. Finished as a borderline top 100 guy last year in a terrible situation with the Utah Jazz. Not the most fantasy-friendly stat profile, but he will give you points, he'll give you assists, he'll give you threes, and really solid percentages. You take the last 2 years on aggregate, he's a 48, 40, 85 shooter when you look at that slash line. So I still think Collin Sexton, to me, is somebody that'll probably be undervalued a bit in drafts. And then the other guy who gets out of Utah, John Collins, now with the LA Clippers, missed over half of last season with an injury, but we kind of forget he was a top 45 guy before he went down, and he's going around pick 100 right now. I get there's a lot more talent around him with the Clippers, but major injury liabilities in that lineup in both Bradley Beal and Kawhi Leonard. So I think there's going to be plenty of nights when one or both of those guys are out of the lineup. Collins himself, of course, has missed a decent amount of time throughout his career, but he's somebody I'm willing to take an upside swing on.
Yeah, Collins can play forward and center. Now we'll see how much they actually need him at center when they have Zubac and Lopez. Yeah. But at the very least, if Collins is out there high 20s, low 30s a game, shooting threes, and then getting his dunks in transition and getting some, bargain pick and rolls, that will be good.
All right, let's empty the clip here, Alex. Who do you have left?
All right, so I got Kevin Porter Jr. of the Milwaukee Bucks. Assuming he's going to start at point guard for Milwaukee. If he does, top 75 upside very clearly. He's going a lot later than that in drafts right now. Matas Buzelis for the Chicago Bulls. Again, another guy whose ADP is outside 100 on most sites, but is going around pick 80 in a lot of expert mock drafts. His ceiling's a little capped because he is the fourth option on that team, but a fantastic shot blocker, great in transition, plays the way that they want to play in Chicago. TJ McConnell in Indiana. I don't trust McConnell to play more than 26, 27 minutes a game, but if he hits that mark, we know, again, easy top 100 player going outside of that in most leagues. And then my last guy, Brandin Podziemski. We don't know exactly what's happening with Jonathan Kuminga. It's very up in the air. There's a lot of nebulous fantasy value with some of those guys. But Podziemski is someone who came on strong last year, and I do think has upside as 30 minutes a game, plays off of the stars in Golden State. And not only that, all of those Golden State stars, Curry, Butler, Draymond, They're all old, and they've missed time. And I think there's going to be a lot of nights where Podziemski is out there as one of the team's lead options.
I mean, even if they do get something figured out with Kuminga, they've done nothing else. You know, I guess, you know, Al Horford is still floating out there as a possibility, but at the same time, you know, they've done really nothing in that backcourt. You know, it's still Podziemski, Moody, Buddy Hield, Steph Curry. That's about it. Like, there's no depth. There's no young player you really worry about emerging there. So I know Podziemski's been up and down. He's been frustrating at times in fantasy, but I think that's a really good call.